All right. Good morning and welcome to the Hello Future Self Q&A workshop. This is the first time that we're doing this, and my hope is that it's something that I continue doing each week because as you dive into this workbook and this guide and doing this type of work where you're really discovering what it is that you want for yourself, a lot of things are going to come up. I went through this process and I've refined this process time and time again, which is now what you're seeing in the Hello Future Self workbook. But prior to having this outline, this thing that I followed, I would often get lost. I would spin my wheels when I was trying to create this life that I wanted or some resemblance of the life that I wanted. And I just found myself spinning my wheels. And the things that I have outlined in this guide in Hello Future Self are what I have found that work for me. It keeps me moving towards my goals. It keeps me happy along the way. I think that's a really important part because I would find that I would get really down and sad about not having the things that I want yet or not having certain things yet. And this process, this approach kept me really sound energetically. It kept me excited about the dream. And being excited is a very, very underrated feeling when you are trying to break free from a life that no longer suits you, that no longer makes you feel like you're free or that you're you, that you're the most you that you want to be. As you start breaking free from that life, excitement is going to be what propels you towards the next person that you're looking for. So thank you for being here. I'm going to dive right in. So I'm going to talk a little bit about who I am, what the purpose of this workshop is, and I'm going to share a little bit about, I'm going to focus on the first step of Hello Future Self, which I'll get into in a minute, and we'll talk about how to really, really get clear on what you want. So again, the purpose of this workshop is to help you move past things that you get stuck on. I would get stuck on money that I didn't have. I would get stuck on limiting beliefs that were just running rampant through my mind. I would get stuck on anything and everything that I possibly could get stuck on that would stop me or halt my momentum forward. And momentum is something that is a little hard to explain in this space because we are talking about the feeling of moving towards what you want. That's what I mean by momentum. So when we have momentum towards our dreams, it feels good. We're like, oh, I'm actually making progress and doing the things that I need to do in order to get what I want. That's what momentum feels like. And when that momentum halts because of a limiting belief that you run into, because you check your bank account and it makes you really sad, because you feel bad one day and you feel sad one day for no reason at all, because your friend made a comment on a picture you posted or said something about the things that you're doing, the things that you're trying that made you feel less than, made you feel bad about yourself. I hope that's not happening, but these are all things that can halt that momentum. So what we're doing in this workshop is getting that excitement back up. We're building that excitement back up so that momentum can start moving forward again. Because if you think about a big ass semi truck or a school bus, it takes a little while for that vehicle, that big vehicle, to get up to speed. And it can come to a screeching halt, but it takes a while for it to get up to speed. And when you really gain speed and gain that momentum towards your dream life, it gets easier to keep rolling. It gets easier. It's fun. You're like, oh man, this is just easy. I'm just doing things that I like doing. And it's really fun that way. But getting that speed back up, every time you halt that momentum, you have to get that speed going back up again. And so that's what I hope that you find in this call is a push forward to get that momentum going. All right, so who the hell am I? And why am I talking about this? So I am an intuition and energy guide. I focus very, very heavily on intuitive pulls, on the energetics behind things. This entire workshop is about the energetics. It's about an energetic approach to getting at things you want, right? I think I just read off a slide. That was a couple slides ahead, the tripods there. I make slides and then I just talk about things in the order that I want to. So welcome to my little world. I live in a school bus that I converted myself and I travel the country full time. So I basically living the most free spirited, the most fun life that I couldn't even imagine for myself 2 or 3 years ago. But I'm living it right now. I'm in a coffee shop outside of Seattle, Washington, where my little school bus was parked out the front of, and I'm literally actively living out my dream life that I painted for myself a couple of years ago. I quit my dream life to pursue my actual dream life. So like what I was saying a second ago, the life that I'm living now looks absolutely nothing like the life I was living 2 or 3 years ago. I was living in an apartment in Charlotte. It was my dream apartment. I was working my dream job. I had everything I ever thought that I wanted. My apartment was walking distance to coffee shops and bars and restaurants and nightlife and day life and breweries and places I could walk my dogs and just everything under the sun that I ever wanted. My apartment was beautiful. There was a ton of natural light. There were white cabinets and light gray countertops and light carpet, and the walls were painted the exact color that I wanted. Furniture was beautiful. I spent months and months and months picking out my couch and my bed and all of this stuff that grown up Megan always wanted. I had it all. And it got to a point, I'll make this story short, it got to a point where it wasn't what I wanted anymore. And I thought that for a long time. And once I finally started to crack the code on what it was that I actually wanted for myself, it looked nothing like what I was living in at that moment. So in turn, I quit that entire dream life. I quit that life in a series of events, and I went after what I actually wanted. And that was a process, right? It was not something that was as easy as like, oh, don't want that anymore. I want this. It took me a long time to paint this picture of what I wanted for my dream life. And we'll get into that here in a minute. With all that being said, I think it's easy to tell I'm a little bit free-spirited. I kind of prefer to go where the wind takes me. And I find so much joy and excitement and thrill living life that way. So on that note, a few bus life things that could very radically change the pace of this call at any time. Background noise is uncontrollable. I do not have an apartment with an office. I don't have an office space where I can limit the background noise, even when I'm in the bus. Cars drive by, things happen. I've got a dog, I've got a partner in there. A lot of noise is always happening. Unstable Wi-Fi. I've had many calls drop where I haven't been able to share my screen on a lot of calls, but I am in a coffee shop today, like I said. So hopefully the Wi-Fi connection will not be an issue. However, the background noise, I'm pretty sure I can hear the coffee grinder going off right now, and there's music in coffee shops. So there's things that we're going to run into. And last but of course not least is 3-day-old hair. I think saying 3-day-old hair is probably being generous, but I'm hoping you can't tell. I've gotten really good at dry shampoo and making myself look presentable with not freshly washed hair. So, all right, what is Hello Future Self? It is a workbook. It is a 16-page workbook, and it's a lot. It can be a little overwhelming, especially if you're new to this process. But it's an energetic approach to getting what you want. There are 3 steps to this. They're really easy steps, and we're going to talk about those in just a second. But Hello Future Self is a guide. It is a workbook. It is a series of journal or thought prompts to get your mind working, to get your mind thinking in all of the ways that mine did when I was going through this process. This is all looking back at my process in hindsight, saying, what were the really important factors that I found or that I could identify that helped me the most to get to where I am the most quickly. And that's what I poured into Hello Self. So it's a series of journal prompts they're very strategically placed and very strategically asked so that you can get the most out of this guide and start finding things that you can do to gain that momentum that we talked about, to gain that excitement, things that you can do in the life that you're living right now. Even if you don't know what you want yet, things that you can start doing right now that just make you feel better. And this is all energetic stuff. There will be tangible action steps that will come out as a result of this energetic work, but all of it is energetic. And this is a very new space for a lot of people. It was new to me. I had never worked with the energetics. I didn't even know what the energetics were. And I'll be sharing a series on my Instagram about what energetics are and how to play with it. But once you start getting the feel for it, and that's all energetics is, right, is a feeling. It is a sense of knowing. It is our intuition. It's our soul. It's the way that things move and work. It's how we play in this world that we live in. It's how things move without forcing them to move. And we're going to use that. We're going to use that energy and channel that energy to create a life. Okay. Stay with me. If none of this is making sense yet, if none of this is landing on you quite yet, it will. You just have to, you're here for a reason, right? You're watching this for a reason. You're listening to this for a reason. Let that be enough for you to let you know that you are going in the right direction. Even if you don't feel something about all of what we're talking about right now, you will. And again, the fact that you're here listening is your sign, should be your sign to you that this is intriguing to you, it's interesting to you. Okay, so the 3 simple steps. Step 1, get really, really clear on what it is that you want. Step 2, get really, really clear on why you don't have the thing that you want. And this is not something that you'll find commonly asked. In the world of manifestation, in the world of positive thinking, in the world of all of this work where we're like, hey, let's focus on our dream life, rarely will you be asked to think about why you don't have it. That's actually a little counterintuitive to most manifestation strategies or techniques, but there's a reason for this. In the guide in Hello Future Self, there's a really specific reason that I ask this question, and I ask it in a few different ways. It's not this vague in the guide, but you need to get really, really clear on why you don't have it, or all of the reasons that you think you don't have it right now, in order to use that information, like you will in step 3, to identify how you can start showing up differently in your life. And do that right now. And not wait until tomorrow. And not wait until the next day, or not wait until next week, but actually start doing little things as simple as the way that you make your coffee in the morning, the way that you approach your day, little things that you can start changing to start gaining that momentum. So for the first half of this workshop, what we're going to focus on is step 1. Even step 1 has a lot to break down and a lot to get through. We're going to keep it really simple. I'm going to make this concept make sense in the first 10 minutes or so, and then we're going to dive into some questions that were asked. All right. So how to get really clear on what you want. That's what we're going to dive into next. So you're never going to know the things that you want unless you figure out and try and realize the things that you don't want. Contrast is another underrated tool in our toolbox that we have at our disposal at all times. It's readily available to us. And if we can look at a situation, if you want to use a past relationship as an example, or maybe a job, or maybe a place of living, a place where you've lived, if you look back at that situation, it might be hard for you to say, moving forward, I want this. But if you look back at that situation, you can say, this is the full list of things that I don't want because I experienced that way. And it made me realize all of these things that I don't want. So when we just look forward, when we turn our backs to our past experiences and look forward and try to say from a blank slate, this is what I want for my life, it's really challenging. And I'm going to talk about why it's so challenging in just a second. But if we first turn and look at our past experiences, because these are very real things that we have gone through in our life. We have felt these experiences. We know what they're like. We know how much we liked or didn't like them. And you can get both. You can get information on what you do want and what you don't want from the same experience, right? So let's say it's an apartment that you used to live in, or a house that you used to live in. Maybe it was with your parents. You can say, I really liked that I had my own room. I really liked that there was natural light in my room or in my house or in the space. I really liked that there were plants in the space. I did not like my neighbor that had a loud, barky dog. I did not like living below people that stomped around all night. I did not like living with my parents. So use all of that information to then narrow down and refine what it is that you do want. So what you do want is a place where you have your own room, you have a lot of natural light, you like plants, you want to live somewhere with a roommate or by yourself, away from your parents. You want maybe to live on a ground level house or apartment with nobody above you. It's really, really simple once you start identifying the things that you don't want, and even things that you do from your past situations, to start refining what you want that future vision to look like. And we first have to look backwards. We don't have to, but if you're struggling to identify and get really clear on what you want, just make a list of all the things that you don't want. That is a perfect place to start. And honestly, it's more authentic to you, because there's a really good chance the things that you think that you do want right now might actually not be authentic to you. But the things that you don't want are. The things that you don't want are extremely authentic to you. And that's a really, really great place to start, because you can trust that it's yours. And why is it that the things that we want might not actually be what we truly want? I'm going to talk through in this little example. So for just a second, you can close your eyes if you want to. You don't have to, because it's sort of a silly exercise. However old you are, I'm 32. So if you're 30, if you're 5, if you're 28, however old you are, imagine that you are wearing that many hoodies at the same time right now. So I would pretty much picture that I'm wearing 32 hoodies at the same time. I don't even know if I could get that many hoodies on, but imagine that you're wearing 28 hoodies or 30 hoodies, however old you are. Doesn't really matter. So just imagine you're wearing a fuck ton of hoodies. Trying to discover what you want while you are under the conditioning that we've faced throughout our life is like trying to tell what color shirt that you're wearing underneath all of these hoodies. It's trying to see the shirt that you're wearing under all of these hoodies. And this process of refining what you want and what you don't want is like peeling off these hoodies one at a time, right? You think you want something, you see this hoodie and it's blue, and you're like, oh, maybe the shirt underneath this is blue. And then you experiment a little, and relating this back to the example of what you want in your life, and you see something and you're like, oh, maybe I want to move from, a tech career to a teaching career. Totally random example. So you make that shift. If you're brave enough to make that shift, maybe it's not something as dramatic as a career change, but you make that shift, and then you're like, I actually don't like teaching. Well, all that you're doing is you're peeling off another hoodie. And we can get really discouraged sometimes by continuously running into things that we don't want. And I believe that's where a lot of people get stuck. That's what I got stuck for a while. And I just kept running. I'm like, I'm doing all these things, I'm doing all the things. I'm reading books. I'm getting to know myself. I'm spending time alone. I've lived in a school bus in fucking Maine, for Christ's sakes, by myself for like 6 months. And I'm like, I'm by myself. I'm doing everything I could possibly be doing. And all I keep finding is more things that I don't want. And I was getting frustrated and down. And it's discouraging, because you want the thing that you want to know what you want so you can start moving towards it. But the reality here is that by continuously uncovering things that you don't want, by continuously taking off a layer at a time of these hoodies that you're stacked on, is moving you towards your goal. It's helping you refine what you want. And I mentioned conditioning a second ago. So all of these hoodies that we're wearing, and the reason there's one for every year that we're alive, is because every year, every day that we spend out in the world, in society, we are faced and we are presented with this conditioning that is, it's not something that's right in front of your face. It starts from the day that you're born. It's your parents doing things to keep you alive. No, don't run in the street. Don't touch a hot stove. Don't yell when you're inside. Do say please and thank you. Do go to school. Do get a job. Do have kids. Do get married. Do retire. Coffee grinder. Do and don't do all of these things, and the year of our life is just an example. Like in reality, if we were to try to replicate the type of conditioning, we would probably be wearing a lot more than 30 hoodies. I'll say that. So the conditioning that we face, and I want to keep this really simple, so I'm not going to go too far into the conditioning piece of it, but the way that we are brought up in our lives, the things that we've seen, the things that our parents have gone through, the things that our friends have gone through, the things that we have gone through in our lives, all of this impacts how we see our life in the future, how we relate to what we want. And if we've been brought up with this impression that what we're supposed to do is go to school, get a job, have a family, retire, live your life, I know that we've moved away from that some in our society, but I'm just gonna wait for my puppy to do this. Yeah. I know that we've moved away from that some in our society. However, it's still there. And there's a lot more examples than just the typical, like, go to a job, get married, have a family, all of those things. There's a lot more examples of that than just that one. But they imprint on us. And the things that we think we want are things that we've just been telling ourselves, or the things that we thought we wanted our whole lives, but in reality, it's not true to who we are. Because who we are and the conditioning that we've experienced throughout our lives are polar opposites. Who we are has nothing to do with what we've experienced in the world. Our soul, the meat of why we are alive, our joy, the things that make us happy, the things that excite us, the things that light us up, the things that make us excited to get out of bed in the morning. Those are the things that are true to us, and we can only discover those things. Nobody outside of us can tell us what those things are. We have to discover them for ourselves. And if you're on a journey of self-discovery to figure out those things, and you're just constantly peeling off layers, and you're like, oh, another thing I don't want, another thing I don't want. I thought I wanted that, but I don't. Like, I really suck at this. It's easy to spiral. It's easy to get caught up. But this is my encouragement to you, friend. Continue peeling back the layers, because you will eventually get to a point where you have peeled off the last layer. Oh, my shirt is red or whatever. And what I mean by that is, oh, this is actually what I truly want. And a fun piece to that is that's just the deconditioning part of it, right? That's kind of step one. That all falls under step one, if you will. The next piece, and once you realize what it is that you want, what's true to you, and actually true to you, is allowing that to evolve and allowing that to grow and change. Because while we have this huge piece of how we've been taught in our life that's been influencing how we've lived our life, there is also the very glaring reality that we are creatures of evolution. We change. Look at the nature around you, the seasons around you. If you don't live somewhere with seasons, picture someplace that does. But 4 times a year, the temperature changes, plants die, plants grow, things come to life, things move on. Like, we are living in a world of constant change and evolution. So we are no exception to that. We will constantly change and evolve. And if we don't allow ourselves to do that, then we'll fall right back into that place of that halt in our momentum and being in a life that we don't want to be in anymore. And all of this might sound like it's a lot of work to do all of this, but please hear me when I say, once you start peeling off those layers, you just have to get through a couple of those first layers and get off like the really thick hot ones. Take a couple of those layers off, and then you get to start having fun with it. You get to the point where you're like, oh, you know what? I've always kind of wanted to try skateboarding, and I did it as a kid. Maybe I'll just go try it again. And you're trying all these things. You're having fun. You're doing things that are fun to you, because the focus of uncovering what you want is all about feeling fun, feeling excited, feeling good. That's the only thing that we're going to be focusing on is doing things that light us up, because that is our North Star. Things that make us feel good are our North Star to finding the life, to uncovering the life that we want, right? So with all of that said, if you aren't struggling so much with finding whatever it is that you want, because this all applies to the entire journey that we're on. We're never going to be exempt from these things, right? And meaning, if you're 7 years into your spiritual journey, or if you are 10 years into your journey of self-discovery and you've gone through all of the deconditioning and the reprogramming and all of that, we will still constantly need to keep the vision of what we want at the front of our mind, because our mind and our brain is literally wired in a way for survival, right? And I'm not going to dive too far into this, but our brain is wired in such a way that it wants to conserve. It wants to keep us alive. We don't want to spend our energy if we don't need to. And so what our brain kind of wants to do is to get into this autopilot. It wants to automate as many tasks in a day as it possibly can to conserve energy. And if you're not keeping that vision of your dreams and your goals alive in your mind, and that's not something that you have to do a lot of work. I keep saying, but it's not something that you have to like wake up and spend an hour every morning visualizing your dream. It's not that, but just keep it fresh. Remind yourself, check in with yourself once a month. Do little things to ask yourself, am I still doing the things that I love doing the most? Or have I maybe outgrown the season of life? Just little checks like that, because we constantly have to keep that on the front end of our mind, or on the forefront of our mind, or else we fall victim to that automation and that autopilot, and not living in a life in a way where we're alive. We're just kind of like letting life happen. And sometimes it feels really nice to do that. If I'm being honest with you, I've been living in this bus now for a long time, a couple of years, and I'm kind of ready to like check out in the morning. I'm ready to wake up in an apartment and go have a cup of coffee in the kitchen and not have to like clear the counter off because stuff's gonna fly everywhere when I drive down the road and find another parking spot. Like, I'm ready for that, because certain times that type of automation for certain aspects of our life allows for creativity in other areas. And I'm getting a little in the weeds to that, but sometimes that is really nice. But I know going into that season of my life, once we get back to my partner's apartment and we are living a more normal life where we're not on the road constantly, I'm going to have to set up some check-ins with myself in a month, in 3 months. And I'm kind of only thinking that we're going to want to do it for 6 months, because after 6 months, it's like, I get this feeling of complacency in this, just like, not complacency, but it's almost like I get sucked back into just going through the motions. And I am so actively wanting to avoid that, because life that you are consciously creating and consciously living is so addicting. It is quite literally like being on drugs, the best drugs. There's only the good parts of being on drugs, except it's life. It is your life that's making you high, and I am addicted to it. So the little things that you crave will lead you towards the bigger things that you want. So if you are struggling to find what you want and don't know where to start, don't know how to start peeling off those layers, this is the way that you can tap into your intuition, tap into your internal knowing, and start just taking baby steps. Any little thing that comes to you, any little thing that seems so irrelevant, I don't care what it is, if it's call a friend, if it's go for a walk, if it's go bowling, if it's trying a new craft, whatever it is, these little things that you crave, taking that step, doing those things, you're building evidence, and you're starting to refine what it is that you don't want. And by you taking action on those little things that you crave and you can't explain why you crave them, you're communicating back to your intuition. You're opening that channel more and more, right? The more you do things that you feel pulled to do, the more that channel of communication opens up with your intuition, and you're able to like get in a cycle with it. And it's like, okay, I'm doing this one little thing that I felt like I would like doing. And while I'm doing that small thing, I'm having all these ideas flow in that I haven't really thought about before. And I'm thinking about things in a new perspective. It is crazy what our intuition can present to us when we are in our joy. And I am a firm believer that you don't have to be in your joy in order to receive information from your intuition and from your internal guidance. But when you're in that state of joy, it is an entirely new platform of communication. And doing those little things that you crave, they might not make you the happiest that you've ever been in your life, but they're going to spark a little bit of joy, and that joy is going to ignite that I'm losing this analogy, but it's going to kind of ignite that communication and spark that energy between you and your intuition and get that relationship stirring. So just trust me on this. Any little things that you can do that you are just like, that sounds fun, I wouldn't hate doing that. Try those things, because they will guide you toward the bigger things that you want. So with that being said, that is it for kind of the spiel on step 1 of this Hello Future Self guide. And we're going to go into some questions that I received from the workbook. I don't think that people can make it live today, which is totally fine. We're going to dive into these questions anyway, so it won't be the back and forth necessarily of traditional hot seat style coaching, but that's okay. I'm going to talk through these questions as best I can, and then we'll just have to do this again and get some live conversation going. All right, so number one, this one is very sweet. How do you easily romanticize everything? And the rest of this question was, I'm learning to feel and accept and move through big emotions. So how do you easily romanticize everything? For me, this has been, of course, an evolved practice. And it came from the realization that most of my life was spent waiting for a day, waiting for a certain day to do something that made me feel so good, that made me feel like my life was this big magical thing. And that looked like maybe having a vacation planned or a golf trip planned or Christmas, the way that we look forward to Christmas. It was like I would only do the things that made me feel so good and that made me feel so alive on these days that I allotted myself to do them. And that could be because I had work, right? A lot of us have work during the week, and we can't just take random days off. We can't just, walk to the beach on a random Tuesday morning or afternoon and just have a la-di-da day. But once I started to break free from that life that I realized I no longer wanted, this concept of and I have a recording of myself that I took the moment I had this epiphany. It was last July, so it was a little over a year ago. I was in a hotel in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, which that town absolutely rocks. I love Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I love New Hampshire. And I was like in my robe. I was in this really cute boutique hotel. The bus was parked outside. I was staying at this hotel for like 3 nights. I just had I walked around downtown Portsmouth. I went shopping. I was having a fucking day. I was having so much fun. I was feeling so good. I was buzzing. I was in alignment. And I was like in my robe. I was a little high, and I had all my really sexy clothes hung up in the closet. I was feeling like the wealthy woman I've always wanted to be. I was feeling like her. And I was having this epiphany, and I was literally recording myself, but I was talking to myself in the mirror, and I was like, every single day that we wake up is the day that we're waiting for to live our lives and live them. It was just, I can't explain how the epiphany kind of came into me, but it was like, I realized that I would wait for a vacation. I would wait for a weekend. I would wait for an event. I would wait for Christmas. I would wait for something to do this big magical thing. And it was coming because I was in this hotel room, and I was like, why don't I do this more often? Why don't I do these things that make me feel this way more often? And us as a society, as a collective, we do this, right? We withhold things from ourselves until we earn them, until we deserve them. When in reality, the fact that we are just alive is all of the worthiness that we need to deserve to love our life every single day and live our life every single day is already within us. We have to do absolutely nothing to it. But the concept of work, the concept of reward, the concept of all of these things is built in our minds. It's part of that conditioning that we have to earn a good day. We have to work on our vacation. We have to accrue PTO hours in order to take a vacation. We have to save up enough money to be able to afford something. And I was tired of believing it. I didn't want to believe that anymore because I didn't want it to be true. And now it's no longer true for my life. So circling back to how I easily romanticize everything, that realization just set a bomb off in my brain. And I was like, why am I not treating every single day? It is the most magical fucking day, because there is a very good chance, the fact that our bodies keep themselves alive still sometimes amazes me. But there is a chance that I don't wake up tomorrow. We are not promised tomorrow. We get so comfortable assuming that we are. And I know that this is cliche and slightly morbid, but when I started saying every dinner that I have, every breakfast I make, every cup of coffee I make, every day I get up and get dressed, now this is not something that I'm able to withhold and stay true to every single day of my life. But most days I do my best to think this way. But every single day that I wake up is an opportunity to have the best day of my life. And I treat it like that. When we park places and we have breakfast, I break out, we use actual dishes. We don't eat out of Tupperware. I don't cook. I don't do things the fast way anymore, right? I hand wash my dishes when we have the access to a regular kitchen. I don't use a microwave. I use the stove. I do things with intention. I do things in a way to prepare them with love and with intention to make it the best experience that we have had. I'll set up candles. I'll set up lights. I'll set up the table, or we make picnics all the time in the bus. We'll go out to the beach, or we'll just be in a park. We'll be in a grassy area. We'll be in a shitty area of town. Maybe not the scary part of town, but it'll just be like a rundown little park. And I will set that fucking rug up outside. I will take all of my pillows out there. I will find a little shade tree. I will set up some music and make it cute. I'll bring out posters. I'll bring out our little plastic wine glasses to drink water out of. I will make it a vibe because it is so much more fun that way. All right, moving on to the next question. What if I don't know what I want? And this was actually something that we kind of already talked about, but I'm going to answer this question directly because it was asked. What to do, or what if you don't know? I'm at Starbucks, by the way. Totally random. I'm not a fan of Starbucks. I like local coffee shops. I don't really like coffee. Just a hot take. All right. So what if I don't know what I want? The best place to start is if you literally are like, I have a blank slate. I feel so detached from my life right now. I feel like the life that I'm living I feel like a shell in my life right now. Like I'm going through the motions of my life. Nothing makes me feel connected to it. I like feel so removed from it all. Like if you're in that place where I've been here, so that's why I'm like going here, because I know what this feels like. If you are so detached from things and you can't find connection to something, start listening to those little cues, like we talked about a second ago, the little things that you crave or the little things that you desire. If you're in that situation of like blankness or detachedness from your connectedness from your current life, if you're not feeling any pulls of little things to do, start having little moments that you kind of set up and make really fun for yourself. I would recommend, if you were in this place, to spend a little bit more time alone than with people, because if you're feeling disconnected from the people in your life, or if you're feeling disconnected from your life in general, that time would probably best serve you spent within. But we're going to go back to the last question. Romanticize your setting a little bit, because what you've done or what's happening in your world right now is you're like, this life is just not, you're kind of like pushing it away a little bit, which is good, and that's natural because you want to move on from it, but you can't fully move on from it because you don't know what you're moving into, so you're kind of stuck in this like limbo perfectly. Start finding ways to love your life the way that you're living it right now. And I know that a little counterintuitive, it might sound challenging, but look at your life from a different perspective, and wake up in your day with a clean fucking house, a clean ass apartment. Clean your space, declutter your space, make it feel really good to you. Think about what things do feel good to you in your day. Maybe revisit a past memory of like when you were really on your shit, like when you were in the most badass stage of your life. You're like, man, I was waking up, I was working out, I was going for walks, I was going out, I was having fun, I was loving my life. Think back to a time when you were loving your life, and make note of the things that you were doing then, and start doing some of those things if they feel good to you to do now. That's not to say like if that version of your life you're going on partying a lot and you don't resonate with going partying now, don't do that. Things that you used to do then, going for a walk in the morning, like, I don't know, sitting on your porch, having coffee, reading a book, whatever things that you resonate with now that you used to do in that time of your life when you were like, I love my fucking life. Do those things. Try doing some other things. Even if you don't feel anything when you do them, and see if you can spark, because sometimes it's like your flame is just out, your burnout. And it causes this numbness, this like gray scale numbness over our bodies, and we have to reignite it. And something that you do, even if it doesn't feel like that time, doing those little things that connect you back with that version of yourself that loved their life, even if you don't love that life they were living anymore, it's going to connect you to your soul. And your soul is what carries the spark to light the fire again. Okay. We've got about 18 minutes left, so I think we're doing okay on time. Question number 3, and there are 4 questions total. How to get out of your head with negativity when you're trying to visualize a future day that you want to have. So a little context here, in the Hello Future Self workbook, there is a question about visualizing like what your days look like when you are just in a future state in your life, when you have some things that you want. And this question is asking how to essentially avoid the negative thoughts, avoid the noise. At least that's what I'm taking from this. Avoid the noise when you're trying to visualize that day. And I can relate to this because before I got really good at visualizing and seeing what the things that I want look like, which is what you have to do in order to move into them. You have to be able to paint that picture. But before I could do that, I would like say, okay, I'm gonna think about my dream life. I like have a business. I work for myself. I don't work this job anymore. I don't really know where I want to live. I have money to buy a house right now. So even if I did know where I want to live, I don't know where I want to buy a house. And I don't like my job, but I can't quit my job because I already don't have enough money to buy a house. And you can see how that spirals. So that's what I'm taking from this question, because that's what I used to do. When you start trying to visualize and it's not working, your mind keeps filling in the gaps with all this negative shit. Okay, so when you're trying to visualize a future day that you want to have, and I hate giving this advice, but sometimes you just have to like force yourself to do things. Turn on your imagination. Okay, if you really can't turn your imagination on yourself, go find somebody on I recommend YouTube for this. So find somebody on YouTube that is like living a life that maybe feels a little unrealistic to you. It doesn't matter. Like, that's doing something comparable that makes you feel excited, maybe to something that you want to do. If it's somebody that is like a travel influencer, that's traveling the country, or that is a professional surfer, I don't know, whatever it is that like it like makes you excited, or if it aligns with what you think you might want for your life. If you know that you don't want your job anymore, if you know you don't know where you want to live, find someone that is like a freelance traveler and just watch their shit and pick parts of their day that you're like, I would love for that to be in my day, and then just like snatch it. Obviously you're not going to like publish a book with this, so I'm borderline encouraging plagiarizing here, but not really, because again, we're not writing anything. But take moments from their day and write them down as if it's your day, and say, oh, I woke up this morning and I went to the coffee shop and I worked for 2 hours, and then I had the rest of the day free. And then let your mind think about that, and then say like, ooh, what else would I like to do? I really like ice cream, so I'd probably go to an ice cream shop. And I really love being at the beach, so I would probably be in a beach town, and then I would just walk to the beach and lay out on it. You can see how much easier it is to kind of run off when you have that starting point. It's like trying to write a paper when you've got a blank Word document in front of you. It's fucking hard. It's so hard. It's hard for anybody. I don't care how far along, I don't care how advanced or how renowned of an author you are, how many books you've written. I don't care. If you're staring at a blank page, it's really hard to write something, especially if you're not in a place of joy. Even if you are in a place of joy, it's still hard, right? So my biggest advice for this is to find someone who expands the way you think. Find someone who is living a life that you align with, that you resonate with, and then take one of their days and then make it your own. Tweak it a little bit to match things that feel good to you, and visualize that as your future day. And I promise you, the more that you do that, the more you run with it, you'll be able to really start to say like, no, I actually think I want this. No, I actually think I want this. And just do it in your head. Just visualize it. You don't even have to do anything in your actual life about this. Just keep visualizing, and that's going to activate that future version of yourself enough to start opening that channel of communication with your intuition, like we talked about. Then your intuition will start sending you little cravings, and then you start doing those little cravings, and then your intuition starts talking to you more, and it's a beautiful cycle that will eventually pick up the momentum that leads you right into your dream life. That's exactly what happened to me. Okay, last question. I really like this statement. It's not really a question. I'm going to make a question out of it, but I can't actually visualize anything. I feel like I can barely even use my imagination. It goes right into what we were talking about just a second ago. And to this, I would very likely give the same recommendation. Find somebody, find a book, find something that is outside of yourself. There's two things that you could do here. You can find somebody else, or you can look to the past version of you. And if there aren't any past versions of you that have any resemblance of anything that you want in your future life, then go find an expander. Find someone who is doing things that you find thrilling and exciting and that turn you on for your life, and kind of let your imagination run from there. You do not have to start from scratch. You do not have to like build this mega dream life by yourself. Okay. Because it's hard. And that's not what anyone does. Everything that anyone does, says, writes, records, publishes, it's all just a different interpretation of something they've already heard. Right. And oftentimes we want things to be authentic to us, so we want to start from scratch. But the reality is if we allow our internal process to do its thing, it will inevitably be authentic to us. We will know what parts of it we like and which parts we don't like. So it is okay to look outside of yourself in this example for someone who makes you feel excited about their life, and then use an example of their day as a starting point for your imagination to run with about what your dream day or what you're trying to visualize would look like. All right. So that is it for the questions. Again, this was not like a hot seat style because we couldn't have anyone join live, which is totally okay. But what I hope for this in the future is that if you do have questions like this, if you have, or if you are the one that submitted these questions, what I would love to do is to talk through these live with you so that I can provide insight, and then you can receive that information and ask more questions, and we can work through this together and get to a place that you feel good about it right here on this call. And so you can leave and just go about your day with that like tingle of excitement about that's what momentum feels like. That's what gaining momentum feels like, and that's our goal here. So this part was going to be a question or a time for open questions, but again, we don't have anybody here, which is totally fine. So we're going to end it early, but thank you so much for being here. Thank you for doing this for you. This has nothing to do with me. I get so excited when people go after one thing, and I am so passionate about helping you get there. So until next time, and I love you. Have a great day.